Welcome back to the broken masterpiece. This piece is straight off the curb, so battered and broken, and we are going to turn it into this masterpiece. Now this video is going to have a part 1 and a part 2 because there were so many steps to get this back to its perfection, and so follow along for part 2. When I picked up this piece, I knew that it was going to have a lot of issues. I didn't realize how many, and I would not have paid the $90 that I did for it. The inside was absolute trash. There was missing veneer, chipped everywhere. The base was falling off, so I had to re-nail that in. Basically, it needed an entire overhaul. So I almost put it on the curb twice, and I decided, you know what, I am going to save this piece. Now with this piece, I wanted to start with all the repairs necessary, so I am working with Bondo. Here I pulled out some of the cream hardener and then I'm mixing in some of the Bondo with it. You don't want to mix all of it because it dries really quickly, so you just want a little bit to work with at a time. You can use a paint stick like this, but even better if you have a putty knife. I couldn't find mine that day, so I was using my paint stick, but if you have a putty knife, much easier. Once you get that Bondo in, you're going to let it dry. You're going to want to get it as close to the surface as you can and then go back over it and try and get the excess off. Next, I'm going to clean the piece with TSP. It's a degreaser that helps degloss the piece so that I can get off any residue before I sand it. Then you're going to want to get to work sanding. I'm using a Surf Prep sander on this and then a regular DeWalt sander on the top. This medium coarse pad really helps get over those details in the wood without taking it down too far. Wherever you're just going to be painting, and this whole thing except for the top is going to be painted, you're just going to give it a scuff sand. Now if the piece has any imperfections like scratches, you can go a little bit deeper sanding those. For the top, I needed to go pretty coarse with my grit sandpaper, and so I'm sanding with the grain with my DeWalt square sander. I have 80 grit on the top, and then I moved to 100 grit, 120, and then 180 to finish it up. And I know this seems like a ton of sanding, but unless you want to have a really rough surface, you need to go over it multiple times, going higher and higher with your grit each time. And just a reminder, like in all of my videos, everything that I'm using is linked with an affiliate link down below in the description. Bondo is easiest to be sanded with 80 grit, but on these edges down here, I went 80 and then I went 120 just to smooth everything out. So you can see this is where the Bondo has been sanded, and now I can see if it's actually smooth or if I do need another layer of Bondo, which I ended up doing 3 in this case because there was just so much damage that just needed to keep refilling with Bondo. And I'm a perfectionist, so I kept seeing little mini details that I wanted to fix. So once I Bondoed it, sanded it some more, bonded it again, and then sanded it, I ended up needing to clean the piece again. So I went over it with my TSP. It's really great because this piece was so old and dirty, it needed to be cleaned multiple times. So time to tape off the top. So I'm using my frog tape in this case, and then some paper rollout paper, whatever it's called. Frog tape is the best stuff to use, especially because this is going to sit for a few days before I can even get to the top, and that frog tape is not going to let this go at all. It will stay completely attached the entire time. Now before you get to the priming, right after this, I wipe the piece down with a tack cloth that pulls off any dust and just creates a very still surface for the primer to adhere to. The primer I'm using is Shellac Zinser, and it's shellac based. And yes, I know that's hard to work with because the cleaning up, you need denatured alcohol to clean it, but it is the best stuff and completely eliminates bleed through, so use it. And you want to be really careful to wear your respirator, not just a face mask. You need a respirator when spraying anything like this. Now I ended up spraying inside of this piece because I did not like the look of that in the back. I couldn't tell if it was mold and I tried to clean it, but honestly, shellac seals in mold and just completely eliminates it, so we got it gone. Now this is the bleed through that I'm talking about. This is after one layer of shellac. That bleed through is coming in strong because this is a dyed mahogany old piece, and so it is going to need another coat. And with each coat of shellac, the best practice is to leave each coat to dry overnight so that you have it primed and sitting for 48 hours before you put paint on top of it. That is the best way to seal in any bleed through. Sanding your primer is next. I'm using my Surf Prep again because it sucks up all that dust, and I'm using just a fine or medium grit sandpaper on it just to get off any bumps, any imperfections, and it really just smooths the surface out. Microfiber or tack cloth is next. You are going to wipe down the piece completely so that it's ready to be painted. Now before the paint went on, I did not love how the inside of the cabinets looked. There was gaps and little cracks and just the old shiftiness of it. And so I am using caulking, the Alex Plus White, and it is fantastic to do before you paint and you want to let it dry overnight. So I'm going to caulk all the base seams. These caulking guns are really easy to use. It's got a clipper inside, it's got the little pin that you stick through it to get the flow going, and then you use your finger just to trail it after and get off any excess and make sure it sits in that seam. Okay, this is one of my best kept secrets. So after I've shellacked, after I've sanded, there's going to be some parts that you have sanded a little bit too much, and if you used caulking at all, it's going to be discolored, and so before you paint over that and get frustrated that it's not the same color, you're going to go over it with a matte spray paint of whatever color you are using. This acts as a shellac and it helps seal in anything that was missed before I start painting. This piece got snagged on my Instagram before I was even done picking colors. And so my client got to pick, she picked Sandbar by Dixie Belle. I'm using the same sprayer to show you how easy it is to apply. I did have to water it down with distilled water so that it would go through the sprayer easily. If it's coming out shooting and too thick, then you want to water it down and really stir it well. You want to do nice, light, even coats, and you want to do probably about 3 because you're going lighter coats. Now, if there's any drip spots at all, you're going to get your zebra paintbrush out and you're going to smooth those out with a very light hand. My third coat is going on right here, but before this coat, if you have any imperfections or drip spots at all, you're going to want to go over that with a 220 grit and then wipe it clean with a tack cloth before your third coat. This is my favorite sealer. It's polyacrylic, and I love Minwax's brand, but you can use any kind of polyacrylic. It's a water-based sealer because it goes over water-based paint. Now, same thing with the paint. You're going to want to do 2 to 3 coats. I usually do 3 if it's a surface like the bottom of a cabinet. On the sides and the sides of drawers, I usually just do 2 coats. Now I've taken up enough of your time with part 1 of this video, so part 2, we're going to go over the gold gilding, the top stain with the Lily Moon gel stain, and the finishing and staging of the piece.